All right, so you ready to get philosophical?
Always up for a good thought-provoking session.
You basically dropped a mountain of info on us about becoming a religious studies lecturer with these RoleCatcher guides.
They're pretty comprehensive, aren't they?
To say the least, I mean, I love a good deep dive, but this is a lot to unpack.
It's a rich field, no doubt.
Yeah, I have to admit, the idea of exploring ancient texts,
Hmm.
pondering those big questions about faith and reason, pretty cool stuff.
It really draws you in.
Uh,
It's a quest for knowledge, for sure, but it's also about trying to understand, like, the human experience in all its messy glory.
Totally. But okay, these guides, like they've literally mapped out this whole career path. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, they really have.
We're talking starting out those first jitters in the lecture hall,
Yeah.
all the way to like becoming head of the department someday.
They've laid out a roadmap, and it's really fascinating how they break it all down. I mean, you begin as an entry-level lecturer. It's almost like an apprenticeship, right? You're learning from the seasoned professors, working alongside them. And then as you gain experience, you start publishing your research, you move up the ranks, junior lecturer, senior lecturer, taking on more responsibility, shaping the academic landscape, you know? And then, hey, if you've got the drive, you could end up as a principal lecturer, basically leading an entire department.
Okay, so that's the career ladder. I get it. But like, what does a religious studies lecturer actually do? It can't just be memorizing scriptures all day.
Right. No, not at all. Think of it this way. You're leading a classroom discussion, right? Maybe about the concept of free will in different religions. You've got students from all walks of life, all these different backgrounds, different beliefs chiming in. You're guiding them through some pretty complex theological concepts, but also making sure it's a space for respectful debate.
Man, that takes some serious social perceptiveness.
It really does, and these role-catcher guides, they really emphasize that. It's one thing to get the theological intricacies, but you have to navigate all those sensitive topics with real empathy, real nuance, making sure everyone feels heard and respected.
It's almost like being a mediator as much as an expert, because we're talking about topics that can be really personal, even divisive.
You said it. You're creating this safe space for people to think critically, to challenge their own assumptions, consider different viewpoints, even if they clash with their own. And that skill set, that ability to handle those sensitive conversations, it's not just for the classroom either. It comes up when you're presenting at conferences, engaging in public dialogue, collaborating with colleagues from different backgrounds. It's everywhere.
So how does someone even prepare for that? Like, what kind of research are we talking about here? Is it all dusty scrolls and ancient languages?
Well, those definitely make an appearance. But religious studies, it's surprisingly multidisciplinary. You might be researching how ancient Mesopotamian religion influenced early Abrahamic traditions one day, and the next you're exploring how Buddhist philosophy is being interpreted in a modern Western context. It's all connected.
Wow. It's like being a detective, but for ancient beliefs. Piecing together the puzzle of human spirituality across different cultures and throughout history. You'd need a strong background in history, philosophy, all of that.
Oh, absolutely. And the guides, they go in depth about the importance of having a solid educational foundation. Typically, a master's degree in theology or something related, that's like your starting point. But, if you're serious about it, a doctorate with all that original research involved, that's often the key to a more, how do they put it, a tenure track position.
Right. Tenure track meaning a position that could lead to a long-term, more stable career at a university.
Exactly.
So it's a big commitment. But I guess that's what happens when you're passionate about something.
Passion is key, for sure. You have to be genuinely driven to learn, uncover those hidden connections, and then share it all with others.
And speaking of sharing knowledge, I noticed the guides mention how technology is changing the game for religious studies. I have to admit, that wasn't something I expected to see.
It's pretty amazing, right? We often think of theology as this ancient discipline steeped in tradition, but it's actually embracing the digital age in incredible ways.
That is.
I mean, think about it. Digitized versions of fragile manuscripts, being able to collaborate with scholars on the other side of the world, even engaging in virtual interfaith dialogues. The possibilities are endless.
It's amazing, right? Like the study of these ancient beliefs is being shaped by the very technology we use every day. It's kind of mind-blowing. But, this career path, it's not exactly a walk in the park, is it?
It takes dedication, that's for sure.
The guides even touched on the demanding workload, the potential for controversial topics to, well, stir things up a bit. So, like, what's the biggest thing someone should consider before diving headfirst into this field?
You're right. It's not all just dusty libraries and, profound revelations. It takes a certain kind of person.
What, like Indiana Jones, but with scriptures instead of a whip?
Well, not exactly, but I get what you mean. You have to be able to handle the rigorous research, engage in those respectful debates we talked about,
Yeah.
and oh yeah, sometimes even wrangle a room full of sleep-deprived undergrads. That's a skill in itself.
In there.
But really, beyond all the practical stuff, I'd say the most important quality for a religious studies lecturer is a deep respect for, well, for the beliefs and perspectives of others.
Because even if you're like a leading expert on the history of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
you might have a student who's a devout Buddhist
You're
or
right.
an atheist.
And you have to be prepared for that.
You can't just be like, okay, everyone, this is the one right interpretation.
Nope. And that's what makes it so dynamic, so exciting. You're not there to impose your views. You're there to guide students, to help them think critically, engage with different perspectives, even those they might initially disagree with.
It's almost like you're creating this like microcosm of the larger world in your classroom, where understanding and empathy are like essential for tackling these big questions about faith and meaning.
That's a great way to put it. And that's where the social perceptiveness we talked about comes in. It's about reading the room, knowing when to delve deeper, when to provide context, and when to just step back and let the students lead the conversation.
Sounds like it takes a lot of finesse, but also incredibly rewarding, I imagine. But I'm curious, the guide mentioned all these different academic disciplines that overlap with religious studies, philosophy, history, anthropology, even archaeology. It's like you need this whole intellectual toolbox to really excel.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about theology in a bubble. It's woven into the fabric of history, culture, philosophy, even the arts. A good religious studies lecturer needs that broad understanding, to grasp the nuances of religious thought and how it's impacted human civilization.
So it's not just about, memorizing scripture or understanding theological doctrine. It's about seeing those beliefs in the context of the human experience, right? Like, what does it all mean?
That's the beauty of it. Like you said earlier, you're like a detective of ancient beliefs, but you're also exploring what it means to be human, to grapple with these huge existential questions that have resonated across cultures for centuries.
Yeah, that does make those late nights grading papers seem a little more worthwhile. But okay, let's get down to brass tacks here. The RoleCatcher guides are really clear about the different stages of a religious studies lecturer's career path. So let's break it down. Let's start with the folks who are just starting out, the entry-level lecturers.
Great place to begin. It's that first step that can feel the most daunting. But it's also full of possibility.
So what does it actually take to get your foot in the door? What are universities looking for in a budding religious studies superstar?
Well, like we talked about, it all starts with a strong educational background, a master's degree in theology or something similar. That's usually the minimum. But a doctorate, with all that focused research, it's becoming more and more important, especially for those aiming for a tenure track position.
And just to remind our listeners, tenure track basically means a more permanent position, more job security, and the chance to climb that academic ladder.
Exactly.
But it's not just about checking those educational boxes, right? What about real-world experience?
Oh, absolutely. Universities, they don't want just walking, talking textbooks. They want lecturers who can connect with students, inspire them, show a real passion for this stuff. And that's where experience outside the classroom comes in.
Okay, so how do you even get experience in such a specialized field? You can't just, like, intern at a temple or volunteer at a synagogue, can you? Or wait, can you?
You'd be surprised. You laugh, but a lot of aspiring religious studies lecturers find amazing experiences through volunteering or working in religious organizations, community centers, places like that.
Interesting.
It gives them this firsthand perspective on how these theological principles actually play out in people's lives. Plus, they get to engage with the diverse communities, which is so valuable.
It's like bridging the gap between academic theory and like lived experience, seeing how those ancient texts and all those complex debates we talked about, how they actually manifest in the real world.
Exactly. And then they can bring those experiences into the classroom, make their lectures even richer, spark more engaging discussions with students. Everyone wins.
And speaking of enriching the academic world, the guides also highlighted publications and conferences as being pretty darn important for, moving up in this field.
They're crucial for sure.
So it's not just about what you teach, it's about what you contribute to the field as a whole.
Right. Publishing your research findings in well-respected academic journals, it's how you build credibility, show what you bring to the table, and ultimately, it's how you work towards that tenure we talked about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You could be delving deeper into your dissertation topic, exploring something totally new, even collaborating with other scholars from different universities.
So it's like you're juggling multiple roles, teacher, researcher, and a bit of an academic entrepreneur, too.
There you go.
But the RoleCatcher guides didn't stop there. They also talked about the role of senior religious studies lecturer. So what new challenges and opportunities come with that promotion? What's different?
Well, at that point, you're really stepping into a leadership role within your department. You've proven yourself as a scholar, as an educator, and now you're taking on more responsibility for shaping the whole academic environment.
So does that mean less lecturing, more leadership stuff?
Not necessarily. You'll still be teaching, but you might also be mentoring junior faculty, heading up committees, advising on curriculum development, maybe even leading research initiatives.
Sounds like a lot of hats to wear.
It is.
But it also sounds like an amazing opportunity to really make your mark on the field, to shape how religious studies is taught and explored at your university.
Absolutely. You're not just influencing your students anymore. You're influencing your colleagues, the broader academic community. You could spearhead a whole new research project, maybe on something like, I don't know, the intersection of religion and artificial intelligence, or advocate for more diverse voices and perspectives in the curriculum. The possibilities are endless.
It's like you've become a thought leader. That's so cool. And speaking of reaching the top, the guides also mentioned, like, the pinnacle of the academic ladder, the principal religious studies lecturer. So what sets this role apart? What does a principal lecturer actually do?
That's about as high as it goes in academia. The principal lecturer is essentially the captain of the ship,
I like it.
They oversee everything in the department. Academic affairs, faculty appointments, budgets, strategic planning, the whole shebang.
Wow. That's a lot of responsibility, but also incredibly impactful, I imagine.
It is. It takes a unique combination of skills, you know? You need that academic vision, leadership chops, and a good dose of administrative know-how to really thrive in that role. You're guiding the entire department, fostering this vibrant intellectual community, and basically you're pushing the whole field of religious studies forward.
Amazing. We've gone from entry-level lecturer all the way to leading a whole department. It's pretty amazing how many different paths you can take in the academic world.
It really is.
And it doesn't even have to end there, right? I mean, a lot of religious studies lecturers, they go on to become published authors, sought-after speakers, influential figures in their own communities.
Absolutely. And the skills you hone in this field, critical thinking, empathy, communication, those are valuable no matter where life takes you.
It's about more than just the ancient texts and the debates, right? It's about understanding the human experience, all of it.
Exactly.
Well, before we jump into the next level, which is, junior religious studies lecturer, I think we should take a quick pause. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. And we're back, folks, diving right back into the world of religious studies lecturers with these awesome RoleCatcher guides. Before the break, we were talking about what it takes to get started in this field, those crucial first steps. But now I'm curious about what happens next. It's time to level up. Right? So what's it like being a junior religious studies lecturer? What changes?
Well, you're moving up the ranks. It's like going from understudy to leading role.
I like it.
You've put in the work, you've got those first publications to your name, and now you're taking on more teaching responsibilities, more independence. It's exciting.
So less about assisting those senior faculty members and more about, like, leading your own classes, creating your own syllabuses, all of that.
Exactly. You're the one calling the shots now.
That's a big step. What would you say a typical day looks like for a junior religious studies lecturer?
Honestly, no 2 days are ever really the same, but you can definitely expect to be spending a good chunk of your time in the classroom.
Makes sense.
You're the one leading the discussions, answering those thought-provoking questions, and hopefully, sparking some aha moments along the way.
I love those moments.
Best.
But I imagine there's a ton of prep work that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just about strolling in and talking about, like, the Dead Sea Scrolls off the top of your head, right?
Definitely not. There's a lot more to it. You're crafting those lectures, developing engaging assignments, grading papers, and of course staying up to date on all the latest research. Plus, let's not forget about those, shall we say, interesting emails you get from students.
Oh man, I remember those days. Some real head scratchers in there. But even with all of that, you're still expected to be working on your own research, publishing your own work, right?
Absolutely. That never really goes away in academia. If anything, it becomes even more important at this stage. Publishing regularly, it's how you establish yourself as an expert, contribute to those ongoing conversations within the field, and it's pretty much essential if you're aiming for tenure.
Right. Got to get that job security.
Exactly. You might be diving deeper into your dissertation topic, or maybe exploring a completely new area of religious history that really fascinates you, or even collaborating with scholars from other universities, bouncing ideas off each other. It's a very collaborative field, which is great.
It's like you're this multifaceted academic juggler,
Yeah.
teacher, researcher, and even like a academic entrepreneur in a way. It's
Yeah.
impressive. But the role-catcher guides, they didn't stop at junior lecturer, did they? They also talked about the role of senior religious studies lecturer. So what's different there? What new challenges and opportunities come with that promotion?
Think of it as stepping up to the plate, taking on even more of a leadership role within your department. You've proven yourself as a scholar, as a teacher, and now you're really shaping the academic environment around you. It's pretty
Okay.
cool.
So does that mean less time in the classroom, more time in like faculty meetings and stuff?
Not necessarily. You'll still be teaching, definitely, but you might also be mentoring those junior faculty members, showing them the ropes, maybe leading committees, giving your input on curriculum development, or even heading up research initiatives.
Wow, so you really do have a hand in shaping the future of religious studies at your university.
That's what's so exciting about it. You're not just impacting your students anymore, you're impacting your colleagues, the whole academic community. You could be the one who spearheads a brand new research project on something like, oh, I don't know, the intersection of religion and technology. Or you could advocate for a more inclusive and diverse curriculum, making sure everyone feels represented and heard. There's so much potential for positive change.
You become like a thought leader in your field. That's amazing. But we can't forget about the top rung of the ladder, right?
Yeah.
The role-catcher guides also mention the role of principal religious studies lecturer. So what makes this position unique? What sets it apart from the others?
This is it, the top of the academic mountain. The principal lecturer is essentially the captain of the ship.
I love that analogy.
They're responsible for overseeing every aspect of the department. All the academic stuff, faculty appointments, budgets, strategic planning, you name it, they're on top of it.
That sounds incredibly demanding, but also incredibly rewarding. To be in charge of an entire department like that.
Oh, it definitely is. You need a really unique combination of skills to excel in this role. You need that academic vision, you need those sharp leadership skills, and of course, you need to be pretty savvy when it comes to the administrative side of things. But when it all comes together, it's pretty amazing. You're guiding an entire department towards its goals, you're nurturing this vibrant and intellectually stimulating community, and ultimately, you're helping to advance the field of religious studies as a whole.
It's inspiring to think about, honestly. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From those first nervous steps as an entry-level lecturer, all the way to leading an entire department as principal lecturer. It just goes to show you how many different paths you can forge in the academic world.
It's a pretty incredible journey.
And the best part is, it doesn't have to stop there, right? I mean, we've talked about how many religious studies lecturers go on to become published authors, sought-after speakers, influential figures in their communities. The possibilities are endless.
The skills you develop in this field, they open so many doors.
It's about so much more than just the ancient text and the theological debates, as fascinating as those are. It's about cultivating this deep understanding of the human experience. Where we come from, where we're going, what we believe. Those big questions that have captivated humanity for centuries. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of religious studies lecturers. We've explored the challenges, the rewards, the unexpected ways technology is changing the game. Hopefully you've learned something new and feel inspired to keep asking those big questions. Until next time, keep those minds curious and stay tuned for more fascinating deep dives.